Hello everyone, welcome back. All right, in this session, let's talk about tuples. Okay, let's talk about tuples. Tuple is another built-in collection type we use to store data, just like the list. Okay, so a tuple is an ordered, immutable collection of elements. It is ordered, immutable collection of elements. A list is not ordered, all right, and it is mutable. All right. But no, sorry. A list is ordered. I'm sorry about that. Sorry. A list is ordered. Okay. So a tuple is an ordered, immutable collection of elements. Okay. So now when you create a tuple, you don't change it. It is immutable. All right. You don't change it. It is immutable. All right. So tuples are similar to lists, but unlike lists, once a tuple is created, it cannot be changed. They are similar because first of all, they are ordered, and they're also a collection of elements. So you can use them to store elements. So, but the difference is that lists are mutable, while tuples are not mutable. Okay. So how do you create a tuple? Now, for a list, you use a square bracket, but for a tuple, you use the parentheses. So this is the difference here. The difference is you use parentheses to create a tuple, and you use a square bracket to create a list. Okay. So now you can also create an empty list, an empty tuple, sorry. Okay. When you don't have anything inside, it's an empty, so you can later add things inside of it. So you can also create a single tuple. All right. So let's go to code. Let me show you how you create multiple a collection of a collection of elements in a tuple, an empty tuple, and a single tuple. Okay. So if I go to code now. I'm still using Visual Studio Code, but if you're using your phone, you can actually write this code on the code editor on the website there. So I'm creating a tuple. I will just say nums is equal to. So this is the difference here. I'll say 1, 2, 3. But if I want to create a list, the difference is that I will use this square bracket. When I use this square bracket, I'm creating a list. But when I use parentheses, I'm creating a tuple. All right. So this is a tuple. So I can create an empty tuple, all right? Empty square bracket like this. I can also create a single tuple, all right? A single element tuple, all right? So, but if you're creating a single element, okay, you have to put comma at the end of it, okay? You have to put comma at the end of it. But let's just try and see what happens if we don't put any comma. Okay, let's go and let's print out the single tuple. Let's see what will happen if we're going to get an error or not. Okay, so if I clear my terminal and I run this. Oops, sorry, this is Node. Sorry about that. Okay. Python script. Oh, not JS, dot py. Okay. All right. So there is no error, but please you can look at it. It just printed 3. This 3 is not a tuple. But if I put a comma, let's see the difference here. It is supposed to. All right, you can see it now. This is a tuple. When you create something, when you create it without the comma, when you create a single element tuple without a comma at the end of it, all right, it is going to print it as say, okay, let's do something here. Let's find the type of this single that we are printing. Let's see whether it is tuple or just integer. It is, you see, it is int. It is an integer. When you don't put comma, it is an integer. But when you put comma, it is going to be a tuple. So be careful when you're creating a single element tuple. Always make sure that you have comma at the end of it. So you can see the differences here. When I didn't put comma, the class was int. But when I put comma, the class is now tuple. So the type of it is tuple. So this is how you create multi-element tuple, empty element, and a single element. Okay. So what are the characteristics of tuple? They are ordered. They have a defined order. Okay. The way they are added is the way the order they take. You cannot change or add or remove elements from after creation. Once you have created it, you cannot change the elements. You cannot change, you cannot add or remove elements after creation. Tuples can contain duplicate elements. It can contain duplicate elements. They are heterogeneous. A tuple can store elements of different data types. So when we say you cannot change, add, or remove elements after creation, let's go and see what we mean. So I have this tuple, and I will let me see um, if I do single dot. All right, you see, we only have count and index. We don't have any add method or something, but you see, you cannot going to use this one. So you can't modify a tuple. Okay, once you have created it, you cannot modify it. You can't modify it. So it is created for that reason. So you can modify it. It can also be heterogeneous. It can contain multiple data types. It can contain strings. It can contain Boolean and floats. So multiple data types. So it is heterogeneous because it can contain multiple data types. So if I run this code now, you're going to see it's going to print out this tuple. So it is heterogeneous. It can contain duplicates. It allows duplicate value. So let's see the example of duplicate value. I can also say 3. All right. I can have multiple duplicate values of 3. So if I clear my terminal, then run the code, you can see there are multiple duplicate values of 3. All right. So creating a tuple, we have seen how to create a tuple. You use the parentheses and add your elements. You can also create without parentheses, but they will become as separated values. You can create a tuple without parentheses. Okay, so let's go and see. Creating a tuple without parentheses. So I can just say without. Okay, then I will say 2, 4, 6. So if I go on and print this, if I go on and print without, okay, see what we get here. We get a tuple. So it's either you can omit the parentheses, but for readability sake, all right, please, I will prefer to use parentheses to create my tuple. You can also use the tuple constructor function, all right? But when you're doing that, you actually be passing a list, all right? Because this tuple will be converting whatever you give to it to tuple. So just like we also use the list constructor function, you can also use the tuple constructor function. You can also create single element tuple. But let's see how to create with the, if I do something like this, if I use the tuple constructor function, I'll have to pass in an iterable, a list, or anything that can be iterated. So if I pass in a list, it could be 1, 2, 3. Okay, and if we print this Python, you can see it gave us tuple. So what if I try to, because a string is also a sequence of characters. So let's see if I pass this and see what we get. Okay. I haven't tried this before. I'm just for experiment's sake. You can see we gave it an iterable because a string is an iterable. A string is a sequence of characters, so it can be iterated on. And then when I gave it a string, you can see it now created a tuple out of it. So each of these elements, each of the characters in this string are now the elements or the members of this tuple. Okay, all right. How do you access the tuple elements? You use the square brackets, all right? You use the square brackets, and just like the way you use the indexing, you use indexing just like the way we use indexing in list. So you also use indexing here, okay? All right. So you can also use negative index, but let's see. I want to access the first. element of the without tuple, it will give me H. Do you understand? Because that's the first one. I can also do negative. If I do negative, of course, it will start from the back. So if I run this now, I'm expecting to get O. All right. So you can use negative index. You can also use slicing. So you already know how to do slicing. So basically, you can do all these things on a tuple. So let's take a look at some tuple methods. Now, tuple methods are actually limited to just two and maybe three if you include the length. So unlike list, you cannot change, add or remove elements from a tuple once it is created. So that is why there are no much, that's why there are no much what's it called, methods on a tuple. So tuples have a very limited set of methods because they are immutable. You can't change them. So, but tuples only support methods that do not modify their content. The first one is the count. So you use the count method to return the number of times a specified value appears in a tuple. So if you want to know how many occurrences of 3 do you have, now in this single, all right, in this single tuple, we have 3 occurrences of 3. So if I go on now and say single, okay, dot count, I'll give it what am I looking for? I'm looking for the element 3. So if I go on, clear my terminal and print, you're going to see we have 3 occurrences of the 3 elements. If I go on to say, okay, how many occurrences of hello do we have? It will give us 1. All right. So this is how you do. So you can also do the index of, if I want to find the index of a particular element, I want to find the index, this hello element, where does it occur? At what index is it in this tuple? So if I run this, I use the index method, it will give me, I'm expecting to get 1. All right. If I try 3, it will give me the first occurrence. It will look for the first occurrence, and of course, I'll be expecting 0 because the first 3 was at 0. All right, the first 3 was at index 0. So to give you the first occurrence, the index of the first occurrence of that value. Okay. So we have seen count, we have seen index method. Okay. If the value is not found, if you give it a value that is not in that tuple, it will raise a value error. It will raise a value error. It will raise a value error exception. So let me show you. I think we also do something like this in list. So if I try to say I'm looking for 32, 32 is not a member of this tuple. So definitely I'm going to get an error. All right, it's giving me value error. Look at it, it's giving me value error. So this in the value I'm looking for does not exist in this tuple. So you can also try to say get the length. Okay, you can also say, okay, I want to get the index of a particular value, but I want to start from a particular index and end at a particular index. I'm not going to explain this. We have done something like this with list. So you can say, okay, I'm trying to start from index 2 and I will end at index 5. So I'm not going to waste time on this because I have already taught you this. Okay, so the start position is optional. All right, the start position is optional. The end position is also optional. Okay, so just the way it worked with lay, that's the same way it works here. So when I say give me the index of 20, of course, to give us the first occurrence, which is 1. Okay, so you can use the start and end index. You can say, okay, I'm looking for the index of 20, but I want to start from index 2. So 0, 1, 2. So I'm starting from 30. So from 30 up, I want to check what is the index of 20. So of course, it's going to give us, it will return this the second 20 here, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 1, 2, 3. So it will return 3 as the index of this 20. All right, that's why we go here. Okay, so explanation, the method returns the index of the first occurrence of 20, which is 1. When specifying the start position as 2, it finds the next occurrence of 20, which is at index 3. So it will start searching from index 2, which is 0, 1, 2, to start searching from 30. Okay. So what are the operations we can perform on tuples? Tuples in Python are immutable sequences, which means they cannot be changed after they have been created. So, however, you can perform various operations on them to manipulate or access data. All right? So, concatenation, just like the way concatenation works with list, it also works with tuple like this. Okay, so tuple 1 and tuple 2, when you concatenate them, you're going to get all of them in one tuple. All right, I'm not going to explain much of this because we have, even when we are doing addition operator, I also mentioned these things. When we were also talking about list, we mentioned concatenation, we mentioned repetition, just like the way it worked there, it works the same way here. Okay, so checking of membership, I have also talked about this. You want to check if a particular element is in that tuple, you use the membership operator, the in or the not in. You can use any of them, okay? All right. So iterating through a tuple, just like the way you iterate through a, a list, is just the same thing. All you have to do is to replace for fruit in T. Now, T is tuple instead of list. And they'll just give you, it will iterate it and you get it. So I'm not going to talk too much about this thing because we have already taught you this. If you want to get the length of a tuple, you can actually use the length function. The length function is used to get the length of anything that is a sequence. So length of this tuple will give us 3. So length function, so the length function inside the parentheses as the argument you put in the tuple. Okay? All right. Now you can also compare tuple. Tuples can be compared lexicographically, just like the way we compare strings. All right. So is we are checking tuple 1, this first tuple, is it equal to the second tuple? Okay, so it will check both of them are equal because at their respective indices positions, they are the same. So the first tuple has 1 at index 0. The second tuple has 1 at index 0. So 2 and 3, both of them have the same elements at the same positions. So they are equal. But if the first element, all right, if any of them differs, if any of the elements differs, it would, we have done this thing before. We did this thing with strings. I explained it thoroughly. So you're supposed to have known this. Okay. So it first of all check 1 and 1. You to check the elements at index 0. Are they equal? If they are equal, it will return true. It will go to the next one. Are they equal? If it is equal, until it finishes all of them. So this is true because they are equal. But if you look at 1, 2, 3, less than 1, 3, 2, less than. So 0, index 0, which is 1 and 1, they are this value 1, 2, 3 is less than 1, 3, 2 because 1 and 1, all right, they are equal. They are not less than, they are equal. 2 and 3, is 2 less than 3? Yes, it is less than. So that is why it is true. Okay, so you can actually play around with this thing. When we are doing equality equality operators greater than and less than or equal to, we actually did all these things. So this is how you check 1 and 1 are equal, so the 1 and 1 is not less than. To go to the next one, is 2 less than 3? Yes, 2 is less than 3 to return true for us. You can just try to do 1, 2, 3 greater than 1, 3, 2 and see your result. Play around with these things. Okay, you can also have nested tuples, just like you have nested list. Okay, so basically everything I'm showing you here are the things you have already known, but I just want to bring it to your notice that they also exist here. You can have nested tuples, just like, and you can access them using their indexing, just like the way we also access nested list. So how do you delete a tuple? All right, since tuples are immutable, you cannot delete individual elements. You can't delete individual elements or modify individual elements, but you can actually modify the variable holding that tuple. So you can delete it entirely. You can use the delete keyword, delete T. So let's go and do this thing here. If I go and say, I want to delete single, I will use the keyword and I will say single. Then if I try to print this single now, it will no longer be available. All right? It will no longer be available. Let me clear my terminal. You can see we even have an error. because it's no longer available. I'm trying to access something that is no longer available. You see, I've deleted it. It's no longer available. So, but if I comment this delete, all right, and run it again, it will be available. All right. But if I delete it before printing it, it's no longer available. So when you delete it, you're deleting it permanently. Okay. So if you try to access it, it will give you error. It will give you name error. All right. So you can also convert between tuples and lists. So you can convert a tuple to a list and vice versa. So if you want to convert a list to a tuple, you use a tuple constructor. If you want to convert a tuple to a list, you use the list constructor. Okay. So here we are converting tuple to list, and here we are converting tuple to we are converting list to tuple. All right, so you use the tuple constructor or you use the list constructor. We already know all these things. That is why I'm not going to go too deep in it. Okay. All right. So how do you sort a tuple? You use the sort method. The way you sort list is some way you do this. Uh, Since tuples are immutable, you cannot sort them in place. You cannot sort them directly. So, however, you can convert them to a list, sort them and convert them back. So, if you want, you cannot sort a tuple because their elements are immutable. But you can convert that tuple to a list using the tuple constructor method. Then you convert the list. After sorting the list, you convert it back to tuple. I expect you know all these things. Okay, you know how to convert a list to a tuple. You know how to convert a tuple to a list. You know how to sort a list, and you know how to convert a tuple back to a list. So as simple as this. All right. So things have started getting stronger now. So you're no longer a baby in this course. So we expect that you know some things. But anyways, I'm trying to allow you to think. All right. I'm trying to allow you to think. But if you find it difficult, please always reach out. Remember, we promise you personal mentoring. We are always available. Chat us up on WhatsApp and then we'll sort you out. Okay. So unpacking tuples. Now, this is where I'm going to explain more. I'm going to explain more here. So, unpacking tuples in Python means assigning the elements of a tuple to individual variables. So, look at it. This is quick and elegant way to extract values from a tuple. So, if you want to extract the different elements in a tuple, you can unpack them. Okay. So, basic tuple unpacking. All right. The number of variables must match the number of elements in the tuple. So if the number of variables doesn't match the number of elements, Python will raise a value error. So now let's say, let me go and show you an example. Okay. Now I have, let me work with this tuple here. So if I want to unpack that tuple, what I'm going to do is this. I will say A, B, C are the variables is equal to nums. All right, so this is called unpacking. So if I print A, B, C, now it is going to be 1, 2, 3 respectively. So I have unpacked it. A will be 1, B will be 2, C will be 3. So, but they have to be, the variables have to be comma separated. So if I go on and print A, B, C, let's see what we get. Like expected, I'll clear. And we get 1, 2, 3. All right, if I print only A, we get 1. Okay. If I print only B, we get 2. So this is called unpacking. But the thing is that the number of variables you have here must match the number of elements the tuple have. If I try to add another one, if I try to say D, let's see what error we are going to get. Okay, it says we get a value error. So the variable, the tuple has only 3 elements, and you're assigning it, you're unpacking it into 4 different variables. It will not work. Okay. All right. So that is by the way. So this is just almost the same example I've just given you. Here we have a person tuple. Alice is the name, 30 is the age, engineer is the position or profession. So here we are unpacking it. Name, age, profession is equal to person. So Alice will be given to name, 30 will be given to age, engineer will be assigned to profession. And when you print all these things, you get them like this. So this is how you unpack. All right, this is how you unpack. So unpacking with asterisks, all right, this is extended unpacking. Now you can use asterisk to unpack remaining elements into a list. So look at this example here. Now, if I only have, let's say, of course, I have three elements here, but I just want to have access. I want to access the first one, and then the remaining one, I want to have them in a tuple too. So I can just use asterisk like this, and let me say, I will just say rest. All right. So look at it. If I print A and also print rest, rest is going to contain the remaining elements. One will be assigned to A, then 2 and 3 will be assigned to rest. So rest would be, okay, rest will contain the remaining elements. Okay, you see now, but it's going to come as a list. It's going to come as a list, not as a tuple. So A gave me the first one, then the remaining one was now unpacked inside of this one. But you can also, if I try to do something like this, if I say rest, if rest comes first, and I now say A, all right, this A, all right, because of this, the way I put the variables, A would be 3, and rest would be 1, 2. Okay, so if I go on and run this, play around with these things, play around with it, you can see A is 3 and the rest is 1, 2. So even if I try to say just what the positioning matters. If I try to say A, oops, sorry. If I try to say, if I reposition it and say A, comma, rest, then I will now say, comma, B. All right. A will be assigned to 1. 1 will be assigned to A. The first element will be assigned to A. Then the remaining ones. Now, B, 3 will be assigned to B. The remaining ones will now be rest. That means A will be 1, B will be 3, and rest would be 2. But it will be a list. So if I go on and print, you can see now, rest is in the middle. So A and B are at the extreme. Okay, so 1 and 3 will be assigned to A and B respectively. Then whatever that is remaining inside of it will now be the rest. Okay, so this is how you also do unpacking. So make sure you play around with these things. Okay, they are very, just play. The more you play around with it, the more you understand it. All right, so we have this example here. We have this tuple, and we are unpacking it with the asterisk. So you can see A, asterisk B, and C. So 1 will be assigned to A, 5 will be assigned to C. The remaining ones will now be assigned to B. Okay, we print A is 1, we print B, right, which is the unpacking 2, 3, 4, and the C is 5. So the position of this asterisk, this unpacking actually matters. All right, so make sure you understand this. B collects all intermediate values into a list. You can use asterisk only once while unpacking. You can only use it once. You cannot use it 2 times. So let's go and see. Let's try and see. Let's use it. Let's do another asterisk here. Of course, there will be an error. All right. You can only use one asterisk in a variable like that. Okay, so you get a syntax error. All right. So you can only use one asterisk. Okay. It should even here it was flagging it for me, self. All right. So unpacking nested tuples. If a tuple contains nested tuple, you can unpack them using nested variables. Okay, so we have John and we have a nested tuple. So name, then this is how you unpack the other one. Now, because of course, if you unpack like this, name, John will be name assigned to name, and this one is also a tuple. So if you want to unpack this nested tuple, you have to put this parenthesis like this. So basically, we are also unpacking this nested tuple. Okay, let's go and do some experiments here. Okay, so now I have, let's say I have a nested tuple here. I have this nested tuple, 4 and 5. Okay, so if I try to do the normal unpacking, I will do A, B, C, and D. Okay, so I'm just interested in D because A will be 1, 2 will be B, 3 will be C, then D will be this tuple. So I'm just interested in D. So let me just print D. Let me show you what we get. We are going to get a tuple. Okay, we are going to actually get a tuple. So I will clear then. You see, we got a tuple. All right, 4 and 5. That is what we were expecting in D. But instead of, I can just unpack it right away here. I can say D, E. Do you understand? I can unpack it because I'm expecting a tuple here, and I can also unpack it here. So if I now say D, all right, D will give me what? 4, because that will be the first element in there. So it will give me 4. So this is how you unpack. You can unpack a nested tuple. All right, so this is equivalent as I put this thing as D, then later on I unpack it, but I'm just unpacking this right away. Okay. So this is how you actually unpack nested tuples. Okay. So you can ignore values while unpacking. If you're not interested in a particular element, you can ignore the value using the underscore. Okay. So John and this one, if I want to ignore John or any of this, I can use the nested, I can use the what is it called? I can use, oh, sorry, before I go back here, I think this was a mistake here. So let me show you how you ignore. So I want to ignore A. If I want to ignore A, the first element, I'll just use underscore. All right, I don't want to use it. Even if I want to, I can, if I want to ignore C, I can also use underscore. All right. So if I go on and print, I'll still get the next thing. But the thing is that I'm not going to use their values. So I'm going to ignore it. So instead of creating variables, I will just have to ignore it and use the underscore. Okay. So if you want to ignore any variable from a tuple like this, you use underscore. Okay. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. And make sure you do your assignment, make sure you do your test, and if you find anything difficult, please reach out to us. We are always available. Personal mentoring is what we promise to, and we give it to you. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next session.